Hi everyone, sorry we have to do this in a few parts because my old software is not working. I have to try something new, and I can only do it in 10-minute spurts. So hopefully this will be the last one, or maybe we'll have to do one more. But so I was with I was talking about the strength components. They may be manipulated more to closer to our 1 or to 5 repetition maximum because if we are more trained, we should go with that. So trained athletes may use that component. But until we get used to that fact, develop that base, probably stick with a little bit higher reps, 3 to 4 sets. It kind of just depends on that prescription. It could be more, but probably not less. And then our recovery, we definitely want to make sure we have adequate recovery between our sets to allow our bodies to have that short-term recovery so that we can still perform at highest level. And if you look with strength, it's pretty slow moving because it's going absolute amount of weight that we're lifting, and we go forward from there. All right. The endurance components, we got short term, immediate, and long term, and that's just reflecting on our percent of 1 repetition maximum. The long term is going to be the lightest out of all of them. The short term is going to be the heaviest, but still pretty light considering, the recovery is not very long. Speed is going to be, decently fast, if not a little bit faster, depending on how much weight we're utilizing. And then that also goes in turn with our reps. So it really just kind of depends on what we're going for. So this may be some components that maybe runners will try to use as a form of cross training, or maybe this is something that people like to do at the end of a workout to really kind of give them that exhaustion phase and really just try to push them those limits, go beyond just the traditional, weight training themselves. Then we also have power, and power is something where it's the most amount of weight we can move in the quickest time possible, as indicated by my speed of movement here. All right, and so definitely want to have a good recovery between it because it takes a lot. We talked about previously with central fatigue and peripheral fatigue. This will stress both areas of fatigue, but probably a little more central fatigue versus peripheral, simply because it takes a lot of your entire body to perform a powerful movement. So something like plyometrics, which we'll get into later, maybe Olympic weightlifting, or anything, it's sport specific where power components are coming into play. We need to ensure that we have enough of we can basically apply the most maximum amount of force to move whatever we're trying to move as quickly as possible. Now, the repetitions, the one thing I don't like about this is that repetitions, say 15 to 25, that is probably more in the long lines of like jump roping, or maybe doing some sort of like agility type of components. But if you're talking about weight training, like Olympic weightlifting, or doing like, maybe we're doing jumps with weights or something, you definitely do not want to go up this high with repetitions. You want to be on the low end, probably no more than like 5 or 6, and that's pretty much it, because it's going to be exhausting. And you also want to make sure that you're saving and sparing your joints at the same time. So that's the one thing I just don't like about this chart, is that power can be a little bit off in terms of that prescription. And then the final one is just hypertrophy. And this is something where we're trying to develop muscle. So that's what hypertrophy is, the growth of muscle. And as you can see here, it's sought by bodybuilders. We're trying to improve the muscle. So it's not necessarily that we are trying to improve strength. We are going to have some components of it because, we are operating at a decently heavy weight with it, but it's a lot of reps, a lot of sets, not a whole lot of recovery time, trying to induce as much stress with the muscles and therefore induce the greatest potential for growth. And so that's kind of what we're looking at with hypertrophy. All right, so I'll move this over here. So now you see the gentleman on the right side. Obviously we want to be safe, and not saying that he wasn't safe. He kind of looks like he knows what he's doing, but what he was doing is that he wasn't breathing properly. He was so concerned about getting that weight up and, doing this method called the Valsalva maneuver, which I have a nice link there. You can read a little bit more in detail about it. But the Valsalva maneuver is something that you basically, you kind of constrict your whole body make your abs tight, make your torso tight, so that you prevent any sort of rounding in the back, helps transfer energy from your lower body to your upper body better. But you also got to make sure you breathe, because there's a lot of pressure you're generating within your body. All right, by not allowing yourself to breathe, your body thinks you're in some sort of danger. Will actually cause you to pass out because it wants you to be saved. All right, so you don't want to be like this gentleman. All right. Another thing is that you want to, of course, make sure you ease into the program with lighter weights and fewer sets. Make sure that you adjust yourself accordingly. Give yourself a few months of resistance training with lighter weights, not as many sets, and then move forward from there with testing with maybe power or hypertrophy or strength training. All right. So whenever we want to execute a movement, we want to ensure that we are breathing properly. When we basically go from the starting position into like a lift, we want to always inhale. So let's take a bench press, for example, or we can go with this gentleman here who's doing an Olympic, an Olympic clean. And so basically, I'll wait till he comes back again. All right. As soon as he starts, he's inhaling. And then when he's done, if you put the weight back down, he would exhale. Okay, as he lifts up and lifts down. Same thing with like a bench press or a push up. Every time I lower my body toward the chest, I'm inhaling, and as I return to that starting position, I exhale and I press my body away from the floor. It allows me to provide the most force and also make sure I'm breathing properly. All right. When you're using free weights, especially if they are heavy, you want to use a spotter and other safety components as much as possible, because you just don't want something like our friend at the bottom right to, we don't want any accidents to happen. Try to avoid them at all costs. And then we want to keep records of your progress. We want to ensure that we are making that we're making sufficient improvements within our resistance training program, because we're just doing random things all the time. We're not allowing our body to adapt. The randomization is good every now and then, don't get me wrong. It may even be a whole day or two of a weight training program, but in reality we really should have a weight training progression outlined, so that we can have measurable success. So, not getting into crazy details with the strength training guidelines, but there are lots of ways in which we can program, our strength training prescription. So bodybuilding styles, when we're training, maybe 1 to 2 muscle groups for the day. So let's say like I'm training my chest and my shoulders, and then I'm doing my back and like my biceps, and then I'm doing my legs and my abs or something like that. So just like sticking with 1 to 2 groups per day, and you're training pretty frequently throughout the day, throughout the week, because you want to make sure you're hitting everything on a consistent level. But then we have, something like a split style workout where basically I'm doing upper and lower body. So I gave that example earlier, twice a week with an upper body, twice a week with a lower body. Or we can do a pulling and pushing style where every time I'm pushing the bar away from my body, I am, that's 1 day. So that could be like a squat and like a push up. And then we have a pulling, which is like, a pull up or like a deadlift movement, something like that. Then we also have full body routines. This is my favorite in particular. I like doing full body routines 3 days a week for weight training, and then you also have sport specific, where we're actually engaging in sport specific exercises. Maybe whether that's incorporated completely or complementing other styles. It just kind of depends. There are so many different ways in which we can advocate for strength training, and we haven't even touched on a few of the other ones yet. But there are lots of things that we can do in terms of strength training to make sure that we are moving forward. Stop there.